Side Scrollers is brought to you by you. If you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/sidescrollers. It's time for Side Scrollers on YouTube.com with me, Stuttering Craig. I like movies that have sand in them. Wow.
He doesn't like it in his mouth.
And producer extraordinaire, Travis Key.
I don't like the texture in my mouth.
What? And brought to you by you, the G2 community at patreon.com/sidescrollers. And now, broadcasting from our homes, it's time for the #1 gaming and entertainment podcast on planet Earth. It's time for Side Scrollers.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, welcome on out to Side Scrollers on YouTube.com and Rumble.com and Twitch.tv. What's going on, everybody? Hi, I'm Stuttering Craig. Welcome to the #1 and most important video game podcast, broadcasting live Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Central Time on this YouTube channel. It is Side Scrollers. Man, do we got a good one today. We have a one-on-one fun time interview with a man with nearly 1 million subscribers, a man who has lived an incredible life, a man that I can't wait to talk to. It's Gary from Nerdrotic. How are you?
What's up? That makes me sound so interesting. I'm not.
You are. You're a very interesting guy, and I can't wait to talk with you, man. It's we have so much to talk about.
What's up?
So look, we only got you for a little bit of time, and we appreciate you popping in today, man. So we're going to get into this bad boy and get into it hard.
Let's do it. Oh, all right.
Listen, no lube, straight up going in.
Damn.
All right, it's good stuff. We're going in so quick. I got to kill the music. There you go. Music's dead. First off, how are you? Are you doing well today?
Doing good. Busy. Busy as hell, but that's the life. That's the gig, and I love it.
Yeah, good
Been
stuff.
running around like crazy.
Well, I think one of the most important things I need to ask you right off the bat is you obviously are known as a pro gamer, and I think the one thing that most people would like to know is what is your KD?
What's KD?
What is your kill-death ratio?
Oh God, in a game.
Yeah, in any
okay. Oh, dude. Fuck, 1,001, man. I'm great. I'm the best gamer there is. No, I die. Mine is a DK. Oh. It's a death by killed ratio.
I love it. All right. That, by the way, it's a deep cut from Tuesday night's main event. They were asking. That was the first interview that was, or the first question I was supposed to be asked today. But let's get into the real stuff. Okay. So I'm curious about you as a person, right? And I know that we've talked, you've talked extensively about your time in prison and all, and we're going to get into a little bit of that here in a little bit. But I want to know about you, like growing up. What was Gary like in California with parents? I've heard you talk really, really highly about your parents, but obviously you strayed off the path and all that. So give me a rundown of like what it was like for you growing up. What were you into and everything?
Well, I mean, if you want to know what to give you kind of an idea of where I lived in Southern California, San Diego, North County, and it was still kind of country-ish. It was turning into the suburbs, but it was still kind of country-ish. I want you to imagine like Poltergeist, the neighborhood in Poltergeist, the neighborhood in E.T. That's the neighborhood I grew up in. That looked exactly like it. We had our little BMX bikes as we were riding around, reading comic books. And it was pretty normal. It was like going to school, getting up Saturday morning, eating a giant salad bowl full of cereal, watching Scooby-Doo and Super Friends. That was my life. We ran around. We played hide and seek at night. We went outside and played these things called sports all the time. I played every sport. It was a pretty normal childhood in the beginning, before things went incredibly wrong. But I really got that was. But I was already in love with comic books, The first superhero thing I watched was George Reeves Superman and Adam West Batman. Watched them all the time. Watched Star Trek from age 5. Watched Twilight Zone right around the same time. And I was just watching all this nerd stuff like on a loop. And kind of keeping it quiet with some friends and other friends I could share it with, you know? Like I had a couple of nerd friends I could share it with, and then my sporty jock friends. We didn't really talk about it other than comic books. Like at that time, every kid collected comic books.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because even though Star Trek was like, this is a major television show at the time, but it's still seen as like nerdy and you can't really talk about it, right? It's like, oh, it's so nerdy. You said you're good at sports, or you played sports. Was there a sport that you were better at than others that you really gravitated to?
The one I was best at was football. So
What position?
I played tight end. I played linebacker. So I was always kind of stout as a kid, but never super fast. But I had good hands, so I could catch pretty much everything. And so I played linebacker. I played tight end, and a kicker. I was a good kicker,
huh?
Yeah, I was a good kicker.
Hell yeah, there you go. I mean, it makes sense. You're a big dude, stout, tall. You got
Not super tall. It was like more, it was, I don't know. I was built like a short linebacker. Does that make any sense? Well, I was tall. I went through a growth spurt, but then I started smoking a lot. So that probably had a lot to do with it. So I was tall in junior high and early high school. But then that's when I started smoking.
So fairly normal first decade of life. And then I've heard you say around the age of 12, you were introduced to drugs, right? So
yeah, it was 12 years old. Took my first hit of pot, I think behind a boys club. Remember the boys and girls club? Yeah, we were playing basketball, and we had this gym was awesome. It had carpet. It was a carpet gym.
Right.
So
been there, yeah. Been there
before. Yeah. Which lots of freaking rug burns if you're playing basketball in a carpet gym, but and it's like industrial carpet. It's not like shag carpet. Okay, it's industrial, but it was brutal if you slid at all. And we were back there, we were smoking pot, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. I also, that year, went to my my dad's hometown of Roscoe, South Dakota, and they were having their centennial. And I was hanging out with a bunch of kids, and we were doing the grossest thing. We were just drinking people's leftover beers. Fucking, like, who knows what the hell was in those things, but we got ripped. I drank like 2.5 beers, and I was freaking smashed. And I liked it. I thought, hey, this makes me feel good. I like this. This is fun. And it kicked in that addiction gene, whatever it is, the disease that I was born with. It kicked it in pretty hard. I mean, there was a lot behind it, too. There's a lot of stuff going on that was behind it that wasn't my parents. My parents were pretty cool. Mm-hmm. My dad, they didn't know what to do, right? So my mom was kind of a housewife. She worked part-time job at a bank. My dad was a CPA and owned his own firm. Did pretty good. Not in the early days, but did pretty good later. But he was at work all the time, and during tax season, I'd never see him. But he always managed to make it to my games, early on. But it just became really clear that like school wasn't for me. I hated it. I kind of started to like it in junior high. And then when I went to high school, I freaking hated it. I hated every second of it. Teachers, I couldn't stay awake in class. And this is before I was like totally partying. We're talking freshman year. It just wasn't for me. It just like sitting there droning on all day was not for me. Occasionally I'd have a teacher connect with me who was fun, but most of them were just regurgitating what they got out of a book in a monotone language. And I couldn't do it.
Right. Well, okay. So that's not a lot of time. I mean, between the ages of 12 and 14, 12, you're like 7th grade, right? 14, you said you're freshman, you start partying, right? Take a step back here. Do you remember the name of the guy who first offered you a hit? And you were like, and what was your response when he was like, hey, you want some weed?
Yeah, I remember his name.
Yeah.
I'll give you his first name. It's Craig.
Oh, son of a bitch.
It's Craig. I
Craig's
can't give you
are
his
the
last
worst.
name.
No, that's fine.
They are the worst, but it was a Craig.
Okay, so Craig over here, he's like, so what was the situation like? Because, this is the time where, so for you, this is the late 70s, is this right? Or is this early 80s?
Early 80s.
Okay, so early 80s, the war on drugs is starting to kick in. Because for me, so I was born in 81, and I vividly remember. I would say the reason I never did drugs was because all the, just say no, don't do drugs. This is your brain on drugs, right? That stuff scared the hell out of me. And I don't know. Was that stuff fresh for you? Was that stuff happening when this was happening?
It was just starting to happen, and I didn't really notice it, but it would like be. If you remember those, you're probably too old or young for this, but there was like little jawbreakers, like these little blue boxes of jawbreakers, and you flip the lid and it would say, "Just say no to drugs." Mm-hmm. And I'd always say like, "I'll say no as soon as they ask me something." Like I'm not going to say no. We'd laugh at it. It's a joke. It was all over our video games too.
Yes.
It was all over our arcade games. Mm-hmm. But no, I was like well too into it to where. By the time we saw this is your brain on drugs, we were just laughing our asses off. Yep, that's it. Totally got it, dude. No, the guy who offered me, it was behind like a juniper tree. It was kind of like between the building and the juniper tree. I remember it vividly. And he's got this little plastic pipe, and he's like, "You want a hit?" I'm like, "Sure." I didn't know.
Was Craig older than you? Was he
like a couple of years? Yeah.
Okay. Was he known as like one of those kids you shouldn't mess with, or was he just
he was a D&D kid, and he wore this is back in the early 80s. Everybody went to the Army surplus and got their Army jackets and or their camis, and they wore a lot of camis, especially the D&D kids. We called them the tree people where we are, because at San Diego High School there was a big tree where all the D&D people hung out with. And he's just one of those troublemakers. I'm sure he's fine now. But little did he know he's helping make another one. So, we tend to flock together.
Yes, that's amazing how that works out. So you start partying in high school. And was there a point where you're like, "Whoa, man, I'm partying pretty hard," or like I'm going?
There's
like,
plenty of those points.
Yeah,
there's plenty of those points. Yeah, probably when in 10th grade, I'm just like, I'm not going to school anymore. I'm done.
You just straight up quit. You're like, I'm done with school. Quit.
And then they, that's kind of against the law.
Know?
Yeah. Well, they found out later, and it's kind of against the law. So they put me in a continuation school, and I got kicked out of. So they put me back San Diego, kicked out of there. Put me in Sunset High, kicked out of there. Put me in Carlsbad High. I didn't even get a day. I got kicked out before I even started. So that's
for what?
Oh, they just look back at my record and they're like, "We don't want you."
Wow. And
at that point, I think everybody just kind of gave up. I'm like, I ain't going, so forget it. But when I stopped going to school regularly and just made that a conscious decision, and then I'd feel bad for ditching school and worrying about my parents, so I'd just get high to forget about it, right? And what the funny thing is, I'd ditch at my sister's boyfriend's house, who lived right across the street from school, and I will be sitting on the lawn looking at the school, everybody going to school, just high as a fucking kite, just watching everybody go to school, Yeah. And like we had our truant officers, Leo. Everybody knows Leo. This from my area. If you're from Encinitas, you know who Leo is. He was kind of a narc legend. He'd show up at parties. He'd show up at our parties and party with us. Yeah, he'd show up at our parties and do drugs with us.
Wow.
The truant officer who would later try to bust us for, it was really bizarre. Really bizarre.
Right.
But you look back on it now, you're like, okay, yeah, what kind of a guy would take that job? So that kind of a guy. I knew I was acutely aware and just didn't care. I just kind of had this attitude of I'm going to live life for today, and I'm probably not going to live to 30 anyway. So that rhymed, and I did not mean that to happen. But that was my attitude.
So you wake up in the morning, you pretend to go to school, you end up over at your sister's boyfriend's house.
Yep.
And you just smoking out all day or what?
Smoking out, speed, all of it. The first time I took speed was in the back of a Toyota Corona. In front of my junior high school, I was in 9th or 10th grade at the time. And I was still in school. And I'm like, I don't want to do my homework. And my friend's all, I got something for you that'll make you want to do your homework. And I'm all, okay, I'll try it. And I tried it. And it didn't make me want to do my homework, but everything else, yes. That was it for me, because pot was fine. But you just said sit there and veg. I like to do things, and speed, the kind that you get today is very different than the kind you got back then.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a little cleaner. Believe me, it all leads to ruin and death and institutions. Trust me. But it was different. It was called Crank back then.
Right.
And it was really good. I liked it at first, loved it at first, and I was off to the races, to a very steep and swift decline. Well,
so you said in many interviews, drugs lead to jail, institution, and death. That's kind of the one thing that I've continuously heard as I've watched other interviews with you. So you and you said you've had all three of those at some point in your life. Jail obviously is much talked about. Institutions and death. Talk about the death side of things, because I haven't heard a whole lot about that. I'm sure you've talked about it at length, but I have not.
Oh, I've been resuscitated twice. So once by an EMT and the other by a drug dealer's girlfriend.
Wow.
And it was just and it was both speed. My heart just stopped, I guess.
And what age were you?
It was when I was 17, 18. All within a year of each other.
So was the first one the EMT, or was the
first one was the EMT? First one was the EMT. Yeah.
He brings you back to life, and he's like, I'm sure he's like, "Whoa, kid, you need to cut it out." And your response is, "Shut up, old man." Right?
I was like, "Yeah, sure." I'd like whatever they needed to hear, and I probably was serious. I was pretty serious at the time, for like an hour or two.
Mm-hmm.
Then I felt fine. I'm like, let's go, and the drug dealer's girlfriend, that one I probably would have gone. But things were so chaotic at that time. I never even gave myself time to think about it, to be honest with you. I'm like, woo, dodge a bullet there. Let's go. That's kind of the druggy mentality, the addict mentality, like, whoo, because there's times where you feel like you're going to die a lot. So, I mean, I've actually felt worse and survived worse than I did when I did that line of whatever the hell was in it. Like, it was supposed to be meth. I don't know. It could have been heroin, barbiturate, who knows? And it was a lot. And first one, I just went down. Did a little convulsing, and I guess turned blue or whatever. But I wasn't there to see it, so I don't know. It horrified my friends, and it horrified the drug dealer because he doesn't want a dead client on his hand, so he was happy. But at the time, I just kind of got back up and got going.
Well, so how are you paying for all this stuff at this point?
Well, occasionally I would take an odd job, never stick with it, but mostly it was through robbing and stealing.
Really?
Robbing and stealing, yep.
Like, what was the
robbing and stealing and kind of gaming and playing, like as far as like I was really good at convincing drug dealers to front me drugs. And then but I had a lot of drug dealers running after me after that because I didn't pay half the time, most of the time.
Right.
So I'd burn a lot of bridges, but it didn't matter because I just needed to get high that day.
Right.
So, but there was a lot of that, it's called hustling.
Right.
Hustling.
Right. Well, you eventually get hustled right into jail.
Yeah.
Prison. So, and you talked about this a lot, your time in prison, but I want to know how that went down. Like what, where did you get caught? Get caught with what? Give me the rundown of that whole experience. When you went in front of the judge, they sentenced you to prison. Like, give me the whole story here, because I'm very intrigued by this. Because, and I hope you don't mind me asking these things, because for me, this is intriguing because this is not a life I ever lived or ever desired to live. So to hear this, I think it's important to share these stories, because I think that people could hear this and be like, "Whoa, man, that's really fucked up. I don't want my life to be like that." So
it's okay. So to get to prison, you have to go to jail first. Mm-hmm. So I already did a year in county. I already worked. I was a prisoner but I worked for the CDF, So they trained me for firefighting, and I fought fires. Did a bunch of a little bit of county time. So collectively, over 4 years of my life spent behind bars. Prison was so I already had a prior for burglary, and I burglarized the house again, and the worst kind you can do, almost the worst kind you can do. I never committed a violent crime, so I've never I've been in bloody horrible fights, but I never got arrested for them. Mm-hmm. But I've never I never did armed robbery. I never attacked anybody and stole their money. I was never about hurting people. I was like, I just kind of want to do it on the sly. Don't want to hurt anybody, So I would burglarize, and the house I burglarized that had people in it. So that's called a hot prowl. It's very bad. It's very, very bad. It's the worst kind of burglary you can do.
So you knew they were in there, but you still wanted to go in and take their stuff. Yep.
I knew a way in. I thought I could be quiet enough. There was so much. The worst part about this is I didn't need to, you never need to, right? But I wasn't jonesing and out of drugs and money. I had a pocket full of I had $3,000 on me. I had an 8-ball on me. And I got it in my head, and it's complicated thinking back about it. There's a couple things I can't say, but I can't say the guy's name. But there's this guy who drove me there who I'd have beef with. But I didn't know if I wanted to just end him and me. I've never really been suicidal, but I don't know. I didn't care at that point. I was so effing high. But I knew this guy had a gun, right? I knew he had gun collection. So I went in there, and that's what I was going for. Completely failed. It was such an utter failure. And this is why you should have a small dog. Big dogs are good. Big dogs are fierce. You can feed big dogs. You can throw a slice of steak over them. That'll keep them busy for a minute most of the time. Little dogs won't shut the fuck up. And I go in there, and this little dog starts yapping and won't shut the fuck up. So I'm out of here. I'm going to leave. This is a bad idea. Mm-hmm. Time to go. So I went out the garage. I went in the side garage door. So I'm going to go back out the way I came. And this is I always say this is my higher power working in my life. I hit that door handle falls off. No shit. So this is a door I just walked through just 5 minutes before. Mm-hmm. So I go to walk out the side of it, door handle falls off. I'm like, fuck me. So I was going to hit the garage door, couldn't because the guy came out, and I hid under the car, got out from under his car, and I got a gun in my face, dude. I can see the bullets in the chamber. And I got the shaky gun in my face. I'm like, I'm going to get shot. Cops show up, take me in, and the guy said, oh, yeah, that guy would have shot you between the eyes from 100 yards. He was on the Navy pistol team, whatever. It's so that cop saved my life, and I went away, and I knew that as soon as the cop, I just knew when the cops show up, I'm like, oh, I'm in prison for a couple 3 years.
And you just reside to the idea that oh, this is going to be my life for the next little bit, huh?
Yep. That's a hard reality, but it's I might as well accept it now. Because there is, I was told when I got out, don't do this again. I went through the system already and avoided prison, but I knew once you get a second felony, you cannot avoid it. You are going to prison, no matter what. So I just accepted it. Luckily, I was able to ditch the drugs and the money. Never got found.
Before
Yes.
you got the
Yes.
cop. Yeah.
So I was able to ditch the drugs and the money, so I never got, but that never got added to my charge, thankfully. It was bad enough anyway. They probably would have plead those out and dropped them anyway, to be honest with you, the way the system works, because the system is just about getting wins and getting people through, especially when they know you, they have you.
Right.
My dad was my parents were already estranged. They already cut me off, so I knew no lawyers. I was going to get some dump truck who was just going to cut me a deal. I just knew what was going to go down. So just got to wait it out.
So Blabs actually on the back end has a really interesting question. She was curious if you ever got back in touch like later. You go through the jail system, which we'll get to in a little bit. But did you ever get back in touch with the person that you robbed and were you like, did you ever say anything to him or?
Yeah, I wrote him a letter. I wrote him a letter. Yeah.
Did they respond back at all? Or?
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
I got. I mean, basically forgiven, but
good. Well, that's.
But the whole point of the letter is for me to write it, and what they do is what they do. The whole point of making amends is like not everybody's going to say, "Cool." There's going to be a lot of people tell you to fuck off permanently or die, and some have. I deserve it, but yeah.
Did you decide to write the letter, or was it?
I did. Yeah, I did because I knew his daughter. Like I knew his daughter, so I mean that helped. I would have written it probably anyway if I didn't know his daughter, but I did know his daughter. I went to somewhat familiar places where I'd been before, so that increases your chance of success, which was faulty logic.
Right.
But I was really high and stupid. But yeah, that's part of the amends process. Yes.
Yeah, well, good for you, man. I think that's great. I mean, you look at people who go down that road and they get put into the system. They go to jail, and in your case, prison, right? After messing up a couple times, and some people don't get over that. They don't choose to correct themselves or be corrected or make that change in their life. I guess when you enter prison, was going to prison the switch, or was it something that happened in prison that flipped the switch for you, where you're like, okay, once I'm out, I'm done?
It kind of worked on. It worked on me. I'm one of the few people it worked on. Mm-hmm. It like properly scares the shit out of you. All these fucking badasses in there. You know what? They're all scared. We're all on guard. And there are some truly horrific, scary people. Evil exists. I've stared it in the eye. I've ate lunch with it. Like it completely exists. And yes, there are people who need to be in prison and stay there forever. Okay, just they do. They're an absolute danger to society. And there's also the mix of sad cases, man. Just sad cases of people who did shit wrong and they deserve to be there, but man, they had an effed up life. Doesn't make it okay. And they just get in that cycle. So, yeah, when I got there, well, for one, you have to go through the process of like, for the second time, because my parents wanted to show up, getting sentenced to prison in front of your parents, right?
Right.
It's brutal.
Was it like
brutal?
So with the judge, I'm assuming it went down like the judge sentences you.
Yep.
And you probably turned.
I'm 22. So I'm a baby.
Yeah. So you're still a kid, right?
Yep.
So you're still a kid. You're 22. You made some mistakes, some big mistakes, major mistakes. The judge sentences you to what? 3 years? 3 years?
It's basically 4 years. You get 4 years, but you do halftime. You do it's a little over halftime if you behave yourself
right
the whole time. So
the judge sentences you. Do you turn and you look at your parents and like, is there this, I don't know, kind of walk me through that? Like how did...
Oh, I couldn't even look at him. I couldn't even look at him.
No. Couldn't even look at him.
My mom was crying. I could, no way.
Right.
No way. I had other, this is a complete, like just the most utter failure of all time, and I'm just like, I need to survive this. I need to, there was no give up. It was just like, fuck, it's like, God, fucking 2 years, 2 years to a 22-year-old, a lot different than 2 years to a 54-year-old.
Right.
That's a long time, and it could have been longer, and it was a little longer. And that was, because I already remember going through the year before and the months before and how long those felt. I'm like, this is brutal. And this is big boy school. This isn't county. County can be bad in its own separate way because you got a bunch of gangbangers in there and a lot of younger people, right? So there's the baby rattlesnakes. You know about baby rattlesnakes, right?
No, please tell me.
Oh, baby rattlesnakes More dangerous because they don't know when to release their bite. They'll just bite you and stay on. Okay, so it's a term I got from like a prison guard or something like that. So there's a lot of baby rattlesnakes. They're fucking dangerous. They are absolutely dangerous. Little young gangbangers who are too stupid to know what's going on in the world. They're the most dangerous thing in any system. You know, like if you're like juvy's bad. Like juvenile hall is bad. It's bad. Prison is bad, and it's in a very different way. There are rules, and if you follow most of those rules, you'll probably be okay, but that takes an incredible amount of discipline when you have nothing to do for and then you're not sleeping because you have one eye open, and somebody can just not like you because of the way you look, and they're a lifer, and they'll just fucking kill you because they don't care, because they just don't care. Or, you know, they'll hurt you real bad. I'll hurt you real bad. Either way. So what happened was I get sentenced, you know, it was a first degree burglary. So I get sentenced to 2 years. That is considered a violent crime. So I have to go to a max. Now, I was told by my lawyer and everybody else that you'll probably end up going to a, you know, something a little less max, you know, after that, but which I ended up going to, right? Minimum security. But you're going to start out max. So I go to Donovan, which is a receiving center in Otay Mesa near San Diego, and you're supposed to be there for about a month. I get lost in the system. I'm there for 4 months.
So a receiving center, walk me through that, because that just
courts. Yeah, so you got certain receiving centers throughout the state. I think it's more than one, right? Donovan's so it's not a place where people stay. It's a place where you go and then they farm you out to the prisons you stay at. That's a receiving center. At least it was back then. We're talking like a long time ago now. So I got to Mark Gator, the skater. Remember the guy who used to skate with Tony Hawk and killed his girlfriend?
I heard you mention this on another interview.
Yeah. Ate lunch with him. Craig Pyre killed Kara Knott, was a CHP officer who killed Kara Knott. Saw him. I ran into a bunch of old homies. I ran into like my drug dealers / mentor in prison. You know.
Wow.
So like ran into a lot of nasty effing people. So I'm there. So I'm at the receiving center. You're supposed to be there for a month. I get stuck at 4, and the only thing I'm pissed about, I mean, it sucks because you just want to be settled at that point. I also wanted to smoke cigarettes. That was the only thing I could think of. Was like, I just want to freaking smoke a cigarette. That's all I want to do. And what I did is I read it in a day. In 24 hours, I read the book It.
I can't, if you're reading that much, especially a book like It, like, and you're in prison, I would imagine that you're already that book will put you on even more edge at a certain point, right?
It was escapism. I talk about a little bit about this in my next video, but and how important it was. But I just ripped through all the Stephen King books back when I guess he was on cocaine and better, and then hit the Dean Koontz books, and then lots of others. Had a lot of reading time.
There's something missing in here for me, and that is you're an addict at this point. You're a drug user. Would you consider yourself an addict at this point?
Yeah, oh, totally.
Okay,
absolutely.
So
yes.
You're an addict. You get sentenced to jail.
Uh-huh.
When do you there's no rehab or there's no detox? Or,
okay,
how does that detox process
prior
work?
to prison, I had been to a couple of big time rehabs. Like my parents put me in Betty Ford Center. I went to the Betty Ford Center, and this came. Okay, so I went to the Betty Ford Center. Was it before? It was after I went to jail for a year. So I went to Betty Ford Center, and then I went to Crash Golden Hill House, which was a behavioral modification center. So Betty Ford Center, vacation, 30 days, but it introduced me to AA. That's the thing that introduced me to AA. Got the big book. Saw Eddie Van Halen. Never made it in. He made it to the receiving end and then bailed. Yeah. But I did see Eddie Van Halen there. So yeah, it was kind of it was really nice. The food was good. Got to play a little croquet. Got to go to meetings. Felt there was a couple of big earthquakes that happened during the time. But then the day I got out of there, we were partying like it was 1999. So to keep me out of prison, I went to Crash Golden Hill House, which is you're supposed to be there for a year, and it's hardcore. You can't leave for 3 months. And again, it's a behavioral modification center, man. It is like, it's like it's full on communism of authoritarian recovery. Like you can't cuss, you can't look at people wrong. People will tell on you. They really try to break you down and build you back up. I'll go over that in detail someday. But the recovery was getting in because I liked the meetings and I was starting to get in. So in prison, I know about so when I get here, even though I fell off the wagon, I'm aware of recovery. I'm like, I know it exists, and I'm aware of the steps and stuff, just completely ignoring them because I'm an addict. But it was in once I got out of Donovan. Once I got out of Donovan and went up to Folsom, that's when I started going to meetings. I mean, we're getting ahead of, we're missing my first. So you get in a bus, shackled wrists and ankles for 16 hours.
Man, that's got to be pretty sobering.
Yeah, because we got to stop. Dude, it's terrible. And we have a bunch of stops. That's why it takes so long. You're making a bunch of stops at other prisons. It's brutal. You can't read. There's nothing to watch.
What do you got to go pee?
You tell them, the guard assists you to go and pee. Well, it just gets you up and keeps an eye on you and doesn't unshackle you. That's for sure.
Standing there with your wiener in your hand and your
dude, you got to get used to that. Like when you're in prison, you're shitting and showering and pissing in front of everybody. There's no privacy.
Right.
You get used to it. You do.
Right.
But yeah, the brutal prison ride, get there at night, roll in. So getting there at night and rolling in at night means everybody's in their cell. So once you walk in, everybody's looking at you. Everybody's got their little peepers out, and the guy yells down to me, hey, I had this beautiful long blonde hair at the time, and he's like, hey, Goldilocks, you want some of my sack lunch? I'm like, fuck. So cut my hair immediately. Immediately.
At this point, you're thinking, I'm going to be a bitch.
I'm concerned.
Right.
I'm concerned. I'd rather die, but I'm concerned. I'm like, I don't even want to be put in that position. I'm going to make sure I'm not in that position.
Well, so how do you cut your hair if there's nothing sharp?
Once I got settled, I'm like, hey, where can I get my hair cut? And somebody's like, yeah, give me some cigarettes. Give me a couple cigarettes. I'll cut your hair. I'm like, cool, dude, let's go. So, but I got in. Some people are cool. It's like, what's up, fish? And it's like, can I bum a cigarette? And when I, get another one, some people say, sure, no problem. They're fine with that. They know what it's like to be fish. Fucking new guy. Right. But some are horrible. Including my cellmate, who was a horrible person.
How long before you were? I'm speaking totally out of ignorance, right? Based off of movies and stuff. Mm-hmm. How long before you were tested? Somebody came up and was like, I'm going to fuck with this guy, or, I'm going to try to fuck this guy.
A month. But it's fights. Nobody ever, nothing sexual ever was brought my way, ever.
After
it just wasn't. The first scare? I think, the Oz stuff is really over dramatic. Mm-hmm. There is plenty of consensual. There's plenty. I think that's probably maybe the stories people want to tell, but but I never saw it because I wasn't looking for it because I mind my own fucking business, man. Because with the people there are people there like this. You still find humanity in places like that. It's not like everybody's a monster. There's a guy recognized this is a young pup who's going into the wolves. So he laid it out for me. He's all, kid, here are the things you don't do. I'll try to clean my language here because there's a word YouTube will not like that he said. But He said, don't mess with drugs. Don't mess with gambling. Don't mess with the Film Actors Guild, and you'll be fine.
Got it.
You'll be fine.
So, so you go in about a month in. You said a guy kind of like comes up and gets in your face. You're gonna fight, something along those lines.
So you
right?
fight.
You fight.
You just fight, and it's gonna hurt.
You just know you're gonna fight. Are you scared for your life, or are you just like, this is just gonna be a fight? We're gonna fight for 5 minutes, and then someone's gonna break it up, and we're all gonna go
I
our
wasn't
way.
scared for my life. It was more posturing at that point. Like you just know the difference. But it's easier to tell in there. That's why when you see what goes on in the street, and you see some guy confront a homeless guy who's crazy, like, don't ever fucking do that. Don't ever do that, because that guy will kill you. That's the dangerous one. Some guy posturing, pumping his chest out, like warning you. Like, once I learned how to like deal with things in there. Okay, here's the first time. The first time it's just posturing. It's like, what are you looking at, punk? And I'm like, what are you calling a punk, bitch? And I'm like, right. I'm dead now. I'm going to the hospital. I just knew it, but I had to say it. Because I've been in enough to know to like, I was in county. I know. I learned. I got my lumps in county. So by the time I was here, I was like, bitch. It was kind of like that. You bitch.
Right.
Because like being prepared to just get my ass kicked. And I did a couple of times, but they didn't fuck with me after that. They're like, okay, he took his lumps. He's not a bitch. Like, this guy will fight back, because I try to fight back. Even like there was a couple times where people felt sorry for me and they stopped. Like, you got heart, kid. Right.
Rocky over here getting his ass kicked. You got
can
heart.
I get a napkin for the blood?
Man, that's what an insane experience.
But eventually it turned into, if a guy says, "What are you looking at, punk?" I just popped him in the face. Like that. Yeah. That was my response. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to pop you as hard as I can in the face and hope for the best after that. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it didn't. How many fights did you get in prison? Like 8 or 9.
Jeez.
Like in the grand scheme of things, it's not very much. It's not very much.
Over the course of 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2. Yeah. Right.
2 years and change.
Right. Man, that's crazy. Okay, so
and some were like lame. Okay, some were lame, and then, I mean, county was the hardest I got hit. Man, this guy hit me so freaking hard. I'm surprised I kept consciousness, but like I fell straight back. My glasses went across the room. Just whoa, man. I have not. And that was a good punch, man. He was fast and strong, and it's like, so I get to the sheriff's pull me in, because this is county. And the doctor's looking at my eye, and so what happened? I'm all slipped in the shower. Really? Yep. Man, just went right down on my face, crazy. Because that's what you got to do. And they know you're full of shit, but I'm like, dude, that's another thing. That's the first rule of anything is do not snitch. Do not snitch, or you're dead. You're dead. Best outcome is you go into protective custody, but then you get to hang out with all the pedos and fucking weirdos. So and cops and bad cops. It's like no, I'd rather die. Man, golly, like there's this entire like people talk about being street smart and street smart, right? And I feel like you are a unique combination of both of them, where you're obviously super intelligent, but also have been through some real shit, man. And it's very obvious, because in a situation like that, I'd be like, the guy punched me so hard and it hurt, and I fell down and my glasses came off, because I'm a giant pussy. It hurt. It fucking hurt. But like, it would hurt worse getting a nasty rusty shank shoved in between your ribs because you ratted somebody out. I'm like, a punch in the face, not so bad. Right. It's all relative.
So you mentioned you read a lot in prison. And,
yes.
The one thing you hear from a lot of people who, are quote unquote reformed or is they found Jesus in prison. They started reading the Bible. Was the Bible a big player for you, or was it more nerd action stuff?
It was a nerd stuff. I mean, like church was there, and a lot of people used it. A lot of people were full of crap. Kind of, it just wasn't my thing in there.
Mm-hmm.
It was comic books. I had access to, like, you know, my parents. We were talking at this point, and they'd send me some paperbacks and some music. But you know, the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. 9 Princes of Amber, of course, Lord of the Rings, which I read over and over and over and over and over again. Had some Conan books, and I had this leather-bound copy of the complete Frank Miller Batman that had Year One, a Christmas story, and a Christmas Batman story, and Dark Knight Returns that I just read over and over and over again. I got the Joker Chronicles, and that's what I read. I just read all that stuff, and eventually I got a TV, right? You get these you're allowed to get a TV, so I got this little 13-inch black and white TV. Watch football, watch sports, watch the news, but mostly I read. Just what I could. And then eventually I got into like nonfiction. I was able to, once I got into minimum security, I got like way more UFO books and stuff like that. And I started reading, you know, just everything I could.
Right.
I've never read as much as I read in that period of time. Before prison, I probably read like 2 novels. 2. By the time I was out, it was 1,000. I'd read 2 in a day sometimes. Like if they're small enough, Conan books you could knock out in a couple hours. So lots of those, and the worst time in prison was the L.A. riots. So the L.A. riots, y'all remember, or maybe not.
Rodney King, that, yeah.
Yeah, they kicked off in prison too.
Yeah,
like big time.
Yeah, I've seen you talk about this. This is pretty brutal, and like this is. Yeah, but please tell the story. I'd love to hear it.
Okay,
and
so
by the way, I know that your time is limited. I know you are double booked.
We got plenty of time. It's all good.
Okay, you just tell me when. Yeah.
All right. So Rodney King thing goes down. So there's a little bit of racial tension. Well, there's always racial tension in prison. All right. At this time, everybody's segregated by race, and not just race. We go into like subdivisions, like a Chicano will not be celled with an immigrant, which is not what they were called, because they hated each other. A Norteño will not, I mean, that will not be with anybody from the South for the most part if they come out and say it, because they hate each other. Same goes with Crips and Bloods. They hate each other. But there's no, white people selling with black people selling with white people selling with Mexican, not happening, just not happening. So everything's segregated anyway. And each race has their leader. In county jail, it was called a tank captain, right? Well, there was the tank captain, but then there was the main guy for each race. And that's how it was. So there was racial tension anyway, but when everybody saw the news, it just, within an hour of the LA riot starting, it just went off. People started fighting each other.
Just to get it out, like everyone was so like, it's going off.
A lot of anger towards the guards. So they like, lot of anger. But what happens when shit jumps off and then everybody just starts fighting? Like they just start fucking fighting. That's why I don't spend a lot of time in the yard. So the guards were in danger. The guards were like in mortal peril. Like some of them were going to die, probably get taken hostage, whatever. It was fucking nuts. So I did what any normal, sane person would do. Got the fuck in my cell. I'm like, fuck this shit. I don't want any part of this. So I got the hell in my cell and I started watching, and then they locked us all down. So they eventually got the riot squad in there. I mean, they had to pull in, people from the police department. They went, and they had their old shields and everything up, and they got everybody in the prison, beat the shit out of a lot of people, shot a couple people with real bullets, and locked us all up. But it still went off. People were sitting there. It's like this was like straight up out of the movies. Flaming toilet paper, flaming mattresses, flaming pillows, smoke inhalation. They had the crack. Luckily we were in so it's a tiered prison, right? And there's a hallway. It's like you see in the movies, and you see the big windows. They had to crack the big windows, let the smoke out because they weren't going to let us out. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to die of smoke inhalation in prison. Great. Better luck next time around, I guess. But it died out. But that was gnarly. That was gnarly, and people were just screaming, and it was like, it taught me again a valuable lesson. I had seen this before. But I'll tell the story. One time I was just eating lunch with this guy. Things were calm. It's nice. Like, hey, what's up? I was going Flash. His name was Flash, not Yellow Flash. Flash. He was a pledge for Hell's Angel. And then, I'm taking my bite of I think it was macaroni and cheese or whatever. I look up, and then there's a kid just taking a pencil, and he stuck it right in Flash's neck, right in front of me. And it's all fucking Monty Python blood. And it taught me a valuable lesson that shit can go down whenever.
How soon into your stay?
I was very soon into my stay. Right. That was very soon.
Did Flash make it?
Flash made it, but yeah, he had to pull a number 2 pencil out of his neck. And
did he stab him back?
No, he was too busy bleeding. So it was an 18-year-old kid, scrawny 18-year-old kid. Flash was this muscle-bound fucking biker that nobody would ever fuck with, and this kid's like, "Fuck you." Felt disrespected. His gang member said, "You got to take care of that," so he took care of it.
So I do, and I will. What happened to the 18-year-old kid after that?
Oh, don't know. Rolled up and taken away. Rolled up means you're gone. Probably solitary and then taken to another jail.
Okay.
To save his life.
Right. I was gonna say
to save his life, because if Flash didn't, because that's exact. So when you do get in a fight, you are taken to solitary and you are gone. They put you in another prison for the most part because they don't want any of this revenge shit happening, because it happens all the time. So when I'm in Folsom, I'm a level 2, right? A level 2 prisoner, even though it's violent, is not supposed to be in some supermax. But they were turning old. There's 2 Folsoms. There's old Folsom and new Folsom. So they were moving people to new Folsom. And they were also moving the really bad people to Pelican Bay, which is a supermax, horrible place to go. That's where all the worst of the worst are. Is Pelican Bay. It's up near Crescent City, California, up north. But there was a transition period, so they put the level 2s in with the level 4s, and they weren't supposed to. It's actually against the rules, but they did it anyway. So they had a bunch of kids on drug offenses or burglars in there with lifers. And the one thing the lifers love most are people who are gonna get out and talk about it. They lifers love to hear that they don't. That's sarcasm. They fucking hate it. Mm-hmm. So I had a double murder life going to Pelican Bay cellmate who was a piece of human shit. Which sucked. Which really sucked. That was terrible. I even saved his butt one time, and he got pissed about it. So because they were coming to search all the cells, and he had a bunch of Pruno under his bed. So I dumped it. Pruno's a jail alcohol.
Okay.
Jail alcohol. So you get bread, you get oranges, you ferment it with sugar and water for a long time, and it makes booze. Never had any. So
you dumped it and he's pissed?
I dumped it, and he's pissed. And I'm like, dude, we would have both got fucking rolled up. I saved our ass, Didn't see it that way. Created a lot of tension.
How long did you have him as a cellmate?
Till I beat the shit out of him.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was like a hysterical fight though, because the guy was kind of big and kind of scary. But yeah. I pounded his face in. It might have been with a Walkman type of device. And, I fucked him up pretty bad.
What was the tipping point? What made it?
He wanted to write my mom. He's like, he was going through my shit, and he sees my mom's handwriting. She's got some nice handwriting. I want to write your mom. That was it.
Just turned red.
I just snapped.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was just, dude. It was hating him, being in prison, everything that's gone on came out then, and I just started cracking his face in. And I was supposed to go to the hole. Like that, I was supposed to go to the hole for that. But some dude, they reversed their decision. And I'm like, no, you can't reverse your decision because it's going to look like I ratted and I'm going to get stabbed. And they're like, don't worry about it. I'm like, really? So what else was I going to do? They put me out and nobody said a fucking thing. I guess he wasn't a popular dude. We'll just say that. So I think a lot of people were just happy he was fucking gone. But I never got, I was worried about getting the snitch tag on it for not going to the, I'm like, no, send me to the hole. I need to do the whole 30 days. And they're like, nope, can't. So either that or somebody, another prisoner who might have been the head of something, because a lot of people saw what went down, might have gone to somebody and said like, yeah, don't put that kid down there. This guy had it coming or whatever.
Right.
No, I don't know, but got out of that.
Yeah, you mean, as pointed out in the chat, Card says you Ralphie from A Christmas Story.
I did.
China.
It was totally a Ralphie. That's all it was. It was not like some cool hero moment.
So I've heard you talk about this in other conversations, but you talked, and this was really relevant during the 2020 COVID stuff. But you talked about how 6 months in, you just kind of go insane a little bit. You go a little crazy.
You do.
And you use that almost as a PSA for people, saying like, look, during this whole lockdown shit, you're going to go crazy. And it's not that you're crazy. It's just normal human experience. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So everybody goes through this at around the same time that I observed. This is just anecdotal, but especially happened to me is like once you're confined, we're social creatures. We're meant to do. It's not like we weren't social. Like you can talk to people and stuff, but you're not around your family and friends. You're confined, and you can't. You're not around women unless they're guards, and they're barely women. You're missing this huge aspect of life. You're not free. You're under totalitarianism. You are a number, but you're also confined in a very small area, which we were just not meant to be. Okay, that's why they give you yard time in prison. But even that doesn't help. So I went through, I just started fucking losing it. And I would keep like little notes in my calendar. I kept this calendar. I will never get rid of this calendar because it's a reminder, right? And the notes were pretty, this is what it's just to keep my routine going, right? Get up, go to breakfast, work out, play a little racquetball, go to work, whatever. And then it started getting insane. Like it started looking like manifestos and shit. It started like writing down every single thing I was going to do. And it's someday I'll show a picture of it and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
It goes from this nice writing to like this fucking insanity with drawing devil faces and shit. It's like, woo, I was losing it. And I was like, I stopped eating regularly. It was like massive depression along with like massive anxiety, like just massive anxiety.
Wow.
And it was freaking terrible. And things didn't get like I was in minimum security by this, so things were cool, right? And I got horribly sick in there too, and I lost. I was down to 130 in there.
Jesus. And you started at?
I look like I'm usually about between 180 and 190, like all the time, right?
So how long after did you kind of snap out or?
It was like I went through that period for a couple of months, and then I like started really digging into my routine, and I got a better job in there. Like I just asked the guard, I'm like, is there a better job for me? Because I was doing gardening. I fucking hated it.
Right.
I'm like, dude, is there a better job for me? I want to do it. Like he's all, well, there's an opening up in procurement. I'm like, cool. So I was just typing up drug orders for the prison, but I got to walk, like I could have kept walking and left, right? Anytime at that minimum security, you could pop the fence and leave. People did. It's stupid. You get more time. But we walked down to this office that's right in front of the gate of Old Folsom, just to the left of it. And there's a bunch of women working in there, and we just type up drug orders. Right? But we get to listen to music all day. It's pretty chill. And the pay was great. It was like $1 a day. So
let's go.
Let's fucking go. With that stupid but what that thing did was it taught me how to go to work. I never knew how to go to work for that. I never knew what it meant to like get in a routine, wake up in the morning, take a shower, work out, go to work. That's what it taught me to do. So I did that for like a year. Did that for a year. I just went down there, typed up drug orders. I couldn't even tell you, like, the names are ridiculous because it's all the pharmaceutical names for, not like, I'm going to give you a bad example, but hydrocodone, but it's like way worse. It's all like this weird Latin shit, whatever. So we're typing it up. Did that forever. A lot of people on drugs. A lot of people on a lot of drugs in prison, by the way. I had Missy Missildine, who was my supervisor, who was always hitting on me, like, constantly. She liked having they picked. I never saw myself this way, by the way, but what they do was they were picking out like the guys that they liked, the best looking guys
there you go.
To have in their office so these girls can boss them around. That's exactly what it was. And Missy Missildine was like, she's wider than she is tall. And she wore purple all the time, like all the time. So she's this little round purple thing. And her name was Missy Missildine. It's like, you can't make this shit up, but
right.
Yeah, but I learned a lot. This is where I started getting like political too, because this is where I learned where all the shady shit the government was doing. Just on a very small level, the warden was embezzling money, lots of it, like tons of taxpayer money, to the point where the local news from Sacramento was asking about it, and people in my department were hiding files, and I witnessed it. But I wasn't allowed to talk to the media because I was a prisoner. So weren't allowed to talk to the media. But I watched them lie. I know because I saw these records. I filed these records, and I'm like, holy shit, they're all crooked. They're all fucking crooked. So I'm in here for committing crimes, and they are committing crimes. So that was kind of my eye opening. Like, oh, it's all full of shit.
Wow. Okay, there's a lot there and a lot to dig into, man. And I want to move past your prison time because I know it was a long time ago. But I do want to talk about, you mentioned solitary, and this is something that's always fascinated me. And you watch movies, you watch your Shawshank, right? And solitary confinement attached to that. Did you see people who went into solitary come out as different people just based off of the emotional impact that it had on them?
Yeah, I mean they look glazed, like. I mean, they get back into the routine, especially, but I've seen people get out of there and they look pretty messed up, pretty messed up.
What would you do having been in the prison system and seeing all the shit that happens in it? What would you do now that you're out, now that you're, considered, you're past that part in your life? What would you do to change the U.S. prison system?
You would have to change everything about American, largely cities right now. So a truth that nobody wants to talk about or hear is the amount of black men in prison, which is freaking insane based on the population. Now, is it because they're persecuted or they're from bad environments, or is it just a never-ending cycle from the cities they live in, because we broke away from the black middle class, the atomic family, the nuclear family, not nuclear family. I think it's all of that. I think it's all of it. But I think to fix the prison system, we need to fix our cities first. We need to fix our cities and society. We have a lot of young men who don't feel like they have any hope at all. So we have a lot of young men out there with no dads. So dads need to fucking stay at home. We need to stop being soft on certain things. American cities, run by Democrats largely, have turned into wastelands quite quickly. We've seen these policies fail. And I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Republican. I'm neither. Okay. I'm just telling you what I've seen over my 54 years. We have now seen these policies run in these major cities for decades fail over, and they want them to fail. They'll give you some handout, but it's basically keeping you on the plantation. That's what it is. It's a hard truth. And we need to fix it. And the government can't fix this problem. We need to fix this problem. We need to get back to the nuclear family. We need to get back to dad staying at home. It is societal. It's going to take a lot of time. I don't have all the answers, but we are wasting generations of young men out there are being thrown to the meat grinder by their friends, their own family, and they're making these decisions on their own as individuals because largely they feel like they don't have any hope. So we need to make them, we need to change that. And I don't know how to change that. I can go in there and talk all fucking day in prison or in a meeting like, hey, I pulled myself out of this. But unless they experience it, it's really hard. It's hard. There is another way. There is a better life out there. There absolutely is. But man, it's going to be hard to convince somebody who's never seen that example once in their life from a dad or a mom or a brother or anybody. I don't have the answer for that. I wish I did.
Well, it's almost like, and you see this now with social media pretty consistently, the demasculization of men, of young men, telling them that that's bad, that toxic masculinity. It's so bad. You should not be masculine. And it seems like almost a perfect formula for continued slide down a very slippery slope of, you see an increased divorce rate. You see, young men without dads. You see young men being told that they are bad for being men. And when you add that all up, it doesn't seem like a whole lot of positive is going to come from that.
No. And now you have pop culture, big tech, corporations telling entire quote unquote demographics of people that they're marginalized. So do that. And then, you're disposable as a man. That's been going on for years. And the only way that turns around is through the family. Government ain't going to fix it. Government will never fix it. It's a societal problem. And there's a lot of very deep and dark. There's answers just people don't want to hear about that. About, staying with the family, not getting a divorce, even though I'm a divorced person. Okay. I'm a person who's been through a divorce. Thankfully, no kids were involved. It might've been different if kids were involved, but there's a lot of societal norms that shouldn't be norms anymore, in my opinion, that would probably make it a little better. It's never going to be perfect, but again, we're wasting a lot of our male population because the government sees them as disposable.
Well, so your experience has obviously led to, I'm skipping over a lot of your life here as far as San Francisco and the comic book shop and all that. But I think it's important as part of the, the conversation that your experience and you seeing these things has led to really your voice from, on Nerdrotic, right? And the brand as a whole. When you making content online, you said something like, I'm not Democrat, I'm not Republican, right?
Nope.
But when you make content that is critical of the pop culture world, that can be seen as, an alternative voice to the mainstream narrative, right? You get called all sorts. You get called racist, homophobic, alt-right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's really important. I don't know if anybody's ever, you can say, well, I'm not, but when people say that to you, what is the general response to that? Because I think I know that you're none of those things, right? But there's this, you see Nerdrotic, Geeks and Gamers, pick anyone out in this sphere, labeled these things when I know for a fact that they are not. What is your response to all that nonsense?
I don't care. Earlier on, first it was like, what? Because I said the Doctor is a man. It's a male character, and that became this controversial opinion. I'm like, how is that a controversial opinion? He's a dude. And like that is misogynist, and it turned into a phobe. And I'm like, no, that's bullshit. So at first you're kind of taking it back, but then I'm like, I just don't care. I've been through so much. I've been called so much. I've seen real racism. The last time I was offended, deeply bothered by something a man said, it was my cellie telling me how he killed the two people that he killed in detail.
Right.
That was the last time I was like truly deeply bothered by something someone said to me. It's the, for lack of a better term, the pussification of our society, that, there's so much demand that you have to use this language now. You have to refer to me by these pronouns. Well, the person demanding that, it's their problem. It's not yours. It's not mine. You don't have to change your language. You don't have to walk on eggshells. Screw that shit. We don't live... That's not a real world we live in. That is the social media world. That's not a real world we live in. And it's a deeply personal problem. Try to find it in your heart to feel sad for them, that they are so insecure and so not okay with themselves that they need to demand that you refer to them a certain way. Because you know what? Any trans person who's completely comfortable in their skin doesn't give a shit. Well, any gay person who doesn't, they don't give a crap. If they're comfortable, they don't give a crap.
Right. And the most fascinating thing about that is what you said is 100% logical and reasonable.
Sure.
But you will be labeled, transphobic, homophobic, whatever, because you said that. Because once again, it goes back to my feelings.
Right.
There's so much coddling that takes place.
Yeah.
And like people don't realize, I mean, they don't understand how unbelievably easy it is in the United States compared to other parts of the world. It's really shocking how how head in the sand they are when it comes to other issues that are happening, even not even in the world, in our society. Like it's crazy that they got to worry about how you address them in a third party nature. It's insane.
Right. It's ridiculous. You know what? If you're in Southern California, go take a trip to Tijuana. You think America's such a bad place? It's really close. It's within 100 miles of LA, 60 miles of San Diego, or even less, 30 and 20, depending on where you are. And right on the border. If you're in Imperial Beach, go over there. Have a visit. See how bad America is. And I know many of you out there in the chat, I'm sure you have, Craig, traveled, and that's why you should travel. You get kind of an idea of, oh yeah, it's not so bad. It ain't perfect, but it's not so bad here. It's not so bad.
Right.
And, part of being an adult, part of being a man is being able to show restraint and not act out on every single thing we feel and have a little temper tantrum, just kind of like, just roll with the punches on some stuff. It's like such basic stuff that we're losing. That's part of the degradation. That's a little concerning, we'll say.
I think you obviously have a really unique voice, right? That's resonated with a lot of people for a long time. But I very much feel, excuse me, I very much feel that behind any great man or woman is a great spouse. Right. I feel like having a spouse that can be there for you when shit is going down, and obviously, my wife, your wife is incredibly important. What point, you mentioned you were divorced once, but when did you meet your current wife?
Oh, I met her in '85. So we've known each other for a long time. So we were friends, girlfriend, boyfriend. Back in, when I'll say high school, but I wasn't there. So when we were teenagers, we got together, we broke up a lot because I was kind of a terrible boyfriend. And, we were always friends. Like, even if we broke up and we were dating, we always remained buds, like really cool friends. So I've known her since '85. She went off, she had a first marriage. I had a first marriage. And we reconnected again after both of our divorces, and we've been married ever since. But she's been a friend, a girlfriend, like a confidant, a comrade, ride or die. She has been for a long, long time, and that helps because after my divorce, I'm like, I ain't never getting married again. Screw this. That's lame. But then she knows warts and all, right? She knows everything. She was there. Right. For a lot of it, right? So she saw like how bad things got, and she's the best. She's absolutely the best. So she's really important to like everything that goes on in my life now. She's helped, even when I relapsed, she was there. She took care of the kids when I was completely fucking up. Yeah, she's incredible.
All right. Well, I was told we got about 80 minutes with you, right? So we're at 75 now, and so I do. God, we haven't even got into Nerdrotic at all. But you mentioned this, and I guess we'll kind of close with this before we hopefully can have you back again another time and get into Nerdrotic.
We will reschedule. It's my fault, by the way, everybody. It's my fault. Okay.
Wait, you were late, Gary? What?
I know, late, double booked today. Got a video coming out, all kinds of crazy stuff. So,
well, look, dude, let me just say this. If it's your first time tuning in, hit the subscribe button. I do interviews like this every Thursday, one-on-one with folks. But Monday through Friday, we are live at 11 a.m. Central Time. We'd love for you guys to join us for our regular show, Side Scrollers. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined by Melanie Mack. On Monday, we have Razor Fist. On Wednesdays, we have Adam and Flawed, which is great. Adam Krigler and Flawed. So we got a great lineup of folks here. We'd love to see you guys back on the regular. Okay, so Gary, you mentioned that you relapsed, and I'm sure that's not really a point in your life that you love to talk about. But I think a bigger question before we get into the relapse thing is describe the life of like a recovering addict, right? Like, what is that like? As somebody who I've never been addicted to any sort of substance before, so I'm naturally intrigued by people say even after they've gone through the 12 steps or whatever it is, they still identify. They say, "Well, I'm an addict," right? What is that like? Do you struggle with it every day? Like, is it a daily thing, or is it something that just kind of pops up every once in a while?
It doesn't every day now. Like I'm close to 10 years sober now. So and I deal with it one day at a time. It kind of twinges at the back of your mind once in a while. I can't say how often, but it's once in a while. What's it like being an addict? You got to be careful. You got to always be. The way I practice my recovery is Blabs will like this: constant vigilance. Always be aware. Always be aware of the dangers. Realize that I through my experience, most relapses happen through good times over bad times. And
what does that mean? Like celebrating something? Like
or getting cocky. Like my last relapse was completely getting cocky. Right. It was like just got full of myself, full of ego, and stopped going to meetings. No sponsor. Right back in right in a relapse, and just something presented itself. Excuse me. Something presented included. It was a customer like offering me shit for free, but like they had done it before, and I'd say no. But this time I said yes. Right. So, there was more than that. But we don't have time to get into it, but we will next time, sure, if you want.
Yeah, man. I like to dig deep in case you can't tell.
What's it like being an addict? Never been asked that question before. I don't know what it's like not to be one. You know what I mean? I've been one all my life. So I don't know what it's like not to be one. But when you're an addict and you're on drugs you're currently using, it feels like you're a slave. Like an absolute like zombie slave, possessed, mixing all those things. But I'm still fully aware. I'm still fully responsible, not shedding any responsibility. But it does truly feel like that's probably the closest to possession I ever want to feel like, to where your brain is just screaming, do not do this. Do not do this. And you just do it anyway. He's like, fuck it. I want to get high because it's like eating. It's like for an addict getting up in the morning, it gets so bad. It got so bad for me. Like I couldn't do mundane shit without getting high. Couldn't, go mow a lawn without getting high. It's just an example. I never mowed really any lawns, but
right.
It was like, it's like being possessed by this evil entity that wants to kill you and constantly needs to feed, but that I'm ultimately responsible for. That's the best description I can think of. As a sober addict, I'm really kind of happy. Really pretty happy. You know, as long as I practice my recovery and stay sober and I don't feel tempted today. I don't feel tempted today. Loving my life and, you know, generally having a good time.
When was the last time you felt tempted?
Whew. Probably my first year after the relapse. Probably with the, you know, well, God, probably the first 6 months I felt tempted. Mm-hmm. I'd say every day. But then it just went away. But I also, when I relapsed and got back on, I just absolutely, if I feel tempted, Craig, the following statement in my head is, you do not have another run in you. You're dead.
Right.
Which is true.
Right. Well, shit, man. There's a lot there. And I feel like I like to peel back the onion on folks. And I hope you don't mind.
It's all good.
I think that whether you like to admit it or not, I think that a lot of people see you as an inspiration. I think that they see somebody who has picked themselves out of a really shitty point in their life and has gone on to do tremendous things that affect a lot of people. And I think that's something you should be really proud of.
Thanks, Craig. I hopefully to just like, I guess leading by, I don't want to like lead, inspire by example. If I inspire by example and keep people sober, or even make people think about it, then that's a win. That's a win. Because there's so many people stuck in addiction right now, and they just feel stuck. And I felt stuck for it. It feels never ending. But there is, it takes work. There's no cure-all for this. There's no pill, none of that bullshit. There's no 30-day. I don't want to lie to you. There's no 30-day rehab that you got to pay $1,000 for. It's go to meetings. You know, sober living environment wouldn't hurt, but you're still, that's just you're around sober people. Sober living environment wouldn't hurt.
Jose says, thank you for sharing your story, Gary. Fatherless homes are, in my opinion, the #1 problem. Marine Corps changed my life for the better at 18. Thank you, Jose. Appreciate that, man. Well, Gary, I'll let you go. I'm going to read off these super chats, man. But I know you're busy. What time's your video drop? Or did it already drop?
In about 20 minutes.
Okay. Well, I'll send everybody over there. We'll go watch is it premiere or is it just
it's just going to
live?
Putting it live.
All right. Sounds good. Gary, I appreciate you, man. I genuinely do. And I look forward to doing this again really soon, man.
Cheers, Craig.
And actually talking about your channel and stuff.
Well, yeah, we'll reschedule because like I wanted to go longer too, but
sounds good, brother. I appreciate you, man. I'll catch up with you soon. Okay.
Catch you later.
All right.
Thanks chat. Bye-bye.
And off he goes. There you go, man. What a stud. I genuinely appreciate Gary taking some time. I know he was late, but he's a busy dude. And you know what? Sometimes that happens. I appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to read off these super chats. If you guys enjoy this type of stuff, do me a favor. Like, that support is massive. These super chats, subscriptions, hitting the thumbs up button, all that stuff is absolutely massive. And I realized we didn't even get it. Like, I got a couple pages of stuff to talk about. We barely, like going back to the DSP thing, we barely scratched the surface with Gary, and there's so much there. So I look forward to having him back. So hit the subscribe button. Look at this. Love that. The Real Small Bit, who came in with 20 gifted memberships to start the stream before we even got started, came in with the $33 super chat. Massive support. Says donating $1 for every minute Gary was late. Keep up the great work. Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Let's bring in Blabs real quick. Blabs, how are you?
Hi. That was
What'd you think
awesome.
of that?
Did
you enjoy that?
Well, Gary's one of my favorite YouTubers, so it was a treat to listen to.
Good. Bjorn came in as a brand new member. Thank you so much, Bjorn. Greatly appreciate that. Gary's Beard Crab says Gary's gaming skill is only matched by his punctuality. Right. Well, we'll continue to improve his punctuality as well as his gaming skills. Occasion Corey says, got to meet Gary at last year in Orlando and again in Dallas back in June. Great guy. Enjoy your videos. I'm sure you're speaking of Gary, but yeah, once again, new video over on Nerdrotic here in just a little bit. Appreciate that. We're going to go check that out. Hal came in and says, does that realization make you less or more timid? I'm sorry, Hal, I didn't get a chance to get to that during the chat, but I greatly appreciate that. Hercules came in and says, Gary, did you ever experience ghostly activity in jail? Maybe we'll talk about that next time, Hercules. It's a great question. Hear about all that weird shit all the time. Adam came in and says, my dad was lieutenant. I'm in Crescent City. So you know your shit, Adam. There you go. Patriotic Gestalt came in with a $10 super chat, said, great interview. Thank you. Greatly appreciate that. More to come. More coming very, very soon. Kyle says, warning, like shortage. Oh, let's get those like numbers up. We got some rookie numbers going on. Let's get 1,000 right now. If you guys are just tuning in or just popping in, before you guys head out, make sure you guys hit the thumbs up button. Hayden says, Gary has lived a very interesting life. It's awesome to hear about it. And all through you guys have, Blabs, read that. I can't read. I'm sorry.
Gary has lived a very interesting life. It's awesome to hear about it and all the thoughts you guys have on other stuff other than pop culture, though I love that talk too. Thanks for coming on, Gary, and thanks for doing this, Craig.
You got it, Hayden. And that's kind of the goal from these interviews is I want to talk about I enjoy talking about their channels, but I want to talk about everything but their channels initially, right? We'll get to that eventually, but you know, people are layers. They're onions. You got to peel back the onions. They have layers. So
they're like ogres.
And yeah, right. Ogres have, yeah, right. But Gary, you know, I've had lunch with Gary before. It's the first time I had an opportunity to meet him. We had lunch together, and he's a super genuine guy. And he's led such an interesting life. And I don't think you can cover that in an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. You know, like if you really want to dig into these critical moments of people's lives, you got to have an extended freeform conversations, which once again, like I would love for this to be able to be done in person. Like that's the goal. Cause I think, Joe Rogan style to where you're having these conversations in person as opposed to over the internet. Cause I think those are when the best conversations take place. Hal says, should drugs be legalized? Safe injection sites. Hal, it's another great question. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to ask. Melodic Method came in with 10 gifted memberships. Let's freaking go. Thank you so much, Melodic Method. That is outstanding. Puts us at 31 new members today. That is outstanding. Our goal is always 20. Blue Shell says, excellent interview, Craig. Can't wait for the next one. Hopefully you can make it on Friday Night Tights in the future. Would love to make it on FNT. Great dudes. Great folks over there. And as soon as the invite comes, I will clear my schedule to be a part of FNT for sure. There's a couple, let's see, was there a Rumble rant or two? There was. Vault came in, says Gary Finner, a reminder that the Nooner from the Nooner 3 weeks ago, if you want a great war movie, get My Way. It's Korean made. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to get to that, Vault. And then he also says your One Piece review is brilliant. It reminds me to buy the first 3 manga and 2 seasons of the anime. Thank you, Vault. Appreciate that. All right. And there we go. We're all caught up. Like I said, if it's your first time tuning in, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. If you made it this far, amazing. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out. I appreciate everybody being here. Tomorrow we'll have Melanie Mack on the show, which is great. An upcoming interview, we'll have John Graham from Arby and the Chief on to do a big interview. We had him on for a really short amount of time before all my power went out one day, and we're going to bring him back on. I will be live in a little bit over on the Side Scrollers Plays channel. It's youtube.com/@SideScrollersPlays. I'm playing a little bit of Mega Man 4 today. That's going to be great. And tomorrow on the Plays channel, Dan Bask and I continue the Retro Gaming Police as we're going to be playing the original Doom, a little haunty haunt, fun time, Halloween, good stuff. And there you go. So once again, hit the subscribe button, likes, memberships, the whole thing. You can go watch if you're tuning in right now, you can go watch a past interview with Razor Fist or maybe Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers or maybe Salty Cracker. Lots of great folks we talked to recently. Appreciate you guys popping in. Blabs, you got anything before we roll out?
We're on Spotify now, guys. Just saying.
There you go. That's right. If you want to listen to the show, you can listen to them over at Spotify. Blabs has been doing a good job of making sure it's updated over there. The audio version is available every single day. All right, cool. Go follow us over on Twitter at SideScrollerPod. Follow us over at Rumble at rumble.com/SideScrollers. Spotify and Instagram, and lots of good stuff. So with that said, guys, remember, people are going to try to keep you down. Don't let them. You guys got to go. Go get it. I'll see you guys later on the Plays channel. See you tomorrow for Side Scrollers with Melanie Mack. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.